We're excited to be here today to explore Glass Half Full, Ari Kaplan's optimistic take on the future of legal. Ari Kaplan is our guest today. And by the end of our time, we'll talk about why Ari feels optimistic about legal services. We'll hear some great stories about Ari and the two law firm partners who changed his career, ways that legal professionals can prepare for the exciting future of legal services. And we'll talk about core values, skill building, all those kinds of things. Welcome to Level Table Live, Ari.
It's a privilege to be here. Thanks so much, gentlemen.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you here. Good to see you, Ari. First of all, many of you may not know that Ari hosts a daily virtual lunch. He's done so since the pandemic, and a twice weekly podcast, Reinventing Professionals. Ari also publishes market research reports. I think every time I talk to him, he's talking to somebody or many people in the industry doing his research. He's written two books, The Opportunity Maker and Reinventing Professional Services. Zillow co-founder Spencer Rasmussen described his second book as an essential guide. So that's a high compliment. Ari's also a ghostwriter. He's a frequent speaker to corporate legal departments, law firms, law schools, legal coaches everywhere. He coaches lawyers on business development and practice strategies. And we are really happy that Ari has been a host for Level Table Live events that we have hosted for many years now. And he does a great job. Ari, welcome. We're glad that you're here.
I am honored. I'm a big fan of both of you, and I'm happy to have this conversation.
Let's get started, Ari. I first met you, I'm certain it was following one of your presentations at Legal Week. You did such a great job and you were so optimistic that I thought, I need to know this guy better. I was struck by how positive you were. Where does that come from?
I think that the optimism maybe comes from the idea that you get to choose, right? You get to choose your outlook, your perspective, and with all of the things, you're a composite of all the things that happen in your life. And you sort of make a choice and try to take advantage of all of those moments in any way that you can. I feel fortunate. I've never thought of my career or anything other than an opportunity to be grateful for where I am and to look ahead.
When it comes to the law, Ari, I know that you have an optimistic take on the law, the practice of law, and you speak to it in a positive way that, frankly, a lot of lawyers and professionals don't. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I think a lot of it comes from mentors that I have had over the years. When I first started practicing, I always joke with people. I've been fortunate to speak at over 50 law schools around the world.
Oh, wow.
And I often start telling people that I was a terrible law student. Always to disarm the audience. They think, oh, they're bringing in this person and he's going to tell us all these things and it will be hard to achieve. And I always start with, I was a terrible law student, to be perfectly honest. And in my first job interview, the partner who interviewed me told me that I had more C's on my transcript than anyone that he had ever interviewed in the history of the law firm. And I thought about it for a second and I said, some of those were C pluses. It worked out really well. But the point of that story is that the individual that interviewed me was an alumni of my law school. And I had networked my way into a conversation with a partner of his in another city and asked that partner if he would consider sending my resume to the New York office. And he did. And I assumed, then I got a letter that said something like, we have your resume on file. We don't have any openings. And I assumed that meant we crumpled up your resume and threw it in the garbage. But several months later, when there was an opening, they called me and I was lucky to take advantage of that opportunity.
And you write for a living.
My mother used to always say that to me. I didn't get onto law review when I was in law school, and my mother was always so surprised. She's my mother. And I ended up, as a result, it was a very interesting sort of series of events, but I was friendly with the editor-in-chief of the law school's newspaper. Our law school had a newspaper, and the editor-in-chief, I was writing some articles, like professor had a baby, and I profiled him and wrote an article, took a picture of him at his desk. It wasn't like high journalism. And the editor-in-chief said, Ari, would you consider being the managing editor during the third year for the newspaper? And I thought, managing editor? Is there no one It turned out nobody else wanted to do that job. And the managing editor, it turns out, didn't actually read anything or edit anything. The managing editor laid it out in PageMaker.
Yeah.
And also, it included, you got paid for your time, and it included like a pretty significant scholarship, like a grant toward your tuition. So I immediately took that position, but I had this sort of managing editor on my
Right.
resume, and that helped me in the job process. Yeah. And so,
Right.
yes, I'm a writer now, and I love it.
That's great.